Click on the subscribe button to subscribe to our channel, like and share this video, and engage in our comments. I always thought my husband's friendship with Andre was one of those rare, unshakable bonds. They met at university, shared a flat for years, even stood beside each other at our wedding. So it never felt strange that he was around often, popping by for dinner, watching the match with us, or helping out when something broke around the house. He was like family, and I liked him. Of course I did. Everyone did. Andre had that ease about him. Confident, warm, disarming. Always dressed neatly, always smelled like something expensive and subtle, but never arrogant. Just present in a way that made you feel seen. That's the word, really. Seen. It started small, the kind of thing you only notice in hindsight. Little glances that lingered a bit longer than usual. A shared joke that made my husband roll his eyes, but made me laugh harder than I should have. Compliments that felt too specific. You always wear that color well, as if he'd actually thought about it. One evening, my husband got called into work last minute. It was a Saturday, and we'd planned a quiet night in. Nothing special, just food and a film. I told him I didn't mind, and honestly, I didn't. I was halfway through chopping vegetables when Andre texted, "Still doing dinner? I'm starving." I paused. I almost said no. But then I thought, why not? We'd eaten together dozens of times. Nothing unusual. I told him to come over. He showed up with a bottle of wine and that familiar grin. Figured I'd rescue you from a lonely evening. We ate, we talked. The wine loosened things. We talked about old music, old films, places we wanted to visit. My husband never really liked talking like that. Too abstract, he'd say. But with Andre, the conversation drifted naturally, like we were picking up a discussion that had been going on for years without us knowing it. At one point, he asked, "Do you ever think you settled too soon?" I laughed, more out of shock than humor. "What kind of question is that?" He shrugged. "Just wondering. You're interesting, and I know you love him. I'm not saying you don't. But I also know you. You always wanted more than this." I should have told him that was out of line, that it was inappropriate. But I didn't. Instead, I asked quietly, "And what exactly do you think I wanted?" He didn't answer. Just looked at me in that steady, quiet way of his, like he was trying to read something off my face. The room suddenly felt warmer, the space between us smaller. I reached for my wine, but my hand brushed his on the table. Neither of us moved. We just held there, for a breath too long. Then I stood up, quickly. "I should clear the dishes." He didn't stop me, but when I turned my back, I could feel his eyes on me. Not just watching, but waiting. And that's when I realized this wasn't nothing. This was the beginning of something we might not be able to walk back from. After that night, I told myself it had just been the wine. Just a weird moment. I even avoided mentioning to my husband that Andre had come over. Not because I thought it was wrong, at least that's what I kept telling myself, but because it didn't feel important. Or maybe it felt too important. But things changed after that. Subtly at first. I started to notice the way Andre looked at me. Not just when my husband wasn't around, but even when he was. A glance that lingered too long while I was talking. A smile that came too easily when I walked into the room. And worse, the way I started to look back. There was this undercurrent now, humming just beneath the surface. Every time we were in the same space, it was like we were tiptoeing around something unspoken. He didn't make any overt moves, and I didn't encourage anything out loud, but that didn't stop it from growing. One afternoon, I was out walking the dog when Andre's car pulled up beside me. He rolled down the window, sunglasses on, that same easy smile. "Want a ride?" I hesitated. "It's just the park." Perfect, he said. I've got 20 minutes to kill. We parked and walked. It was quiet, just us, and a few scattered runners passing by. He asked about work. I asked about his latest project. Small talk, but it felt heavy, like we were dancing around a very real elephant. Then, out of nowhere, he stopped and said, "You know what I miss? The version of you that's just you." I blinked. What's that supposed to mean? He didn't look away. You're always in wife mode, always so controlled. But I remember the old you, the version that used to say what she felt without apology. That version, she laughed louder, moved freer. I laughed, but it came out brittle. People grow up. Maybe. Or maybe they get smaller. We stood there, not speaking, just watching each other in the stillness. The wind picked up slightly, brushing my hair across my face. He reached out, too casually, and tucked it behind my ear. It was such a small gesture, innocent on paper. But it wasn't innocent, not at all. His fingers lingered against my skin just briefly, just long enough. My heart was pounding, not from fear, not even from guilt, but from something far more dangerous, want. I stepped back. "We should go," I said too quickly. "It's getting late." He nodded, lips tight. We didn't speak much on the drive back, but when I got out of the car, he said something that made me pause. "You're not the only one feeling this." And then he pulled off. That night, I couldn't sleep. Not because I felt guilty, but because I was wondering what might have happened if I hadn't stepped back, if I hadn't said no, if he'd tried harder, or if I'd let him. And the scariest part? I didn't know if I'd have stopped him. Absolutely, I've got you. Here's part 3, with more intensity, deeper tension, and the kind of emotional suspense you love, all from her point of view. For the next week, I tried to avoid Andre. I busied myself with chores, made excuses when my husband mentioned inviting him over, and even turned down a casual group dinner just so I wouldn't have to sit across from him again. But it didn't matter. He was in my head. Worse, he was under my skin. Everything reminded me of that moment by the park. The way his hand brushed against my face. The way he looked at me like he already knew what I was thinking, like he was thinking it too. I could still feel the echo of his fingers on my cheek. Then, on a rainy Thursday afternoon, my husband called to say he'd be home late from work. Meetings, traffic, the usual. I didn't think much of it. I poured a glass of wine, pulled out leftovers, and turned on a quiet playlist while I tidied up the living room. And then I heard the knock. When I opened the door, Andre stood there, hood half drenched from the rain, a crooked smile on his face, and something unreadable in his eyes. "I was in the neighborhood," he said, but we both knew that wasn't true. I should have said something, closed the door, redirected him, but I just stepped aside. He walked in slowly, like he'd done it 1,000 times before. And maybe that's what made it worse, how normal it felt. "You want something to drink?" I asked, already heading to the kitchen. "Sure," he said behind me, voice lower than usual. By the time I turned with 2 glasses, he was closer than I expected, standing near the counter, watching me. I handed him one, and his fingers brushed against mine. Not an accident. Not this time. "You look different when he's not around," he said. I swallowed. "Don't do that." He raised an eyebrow. "Do what?" "Say things like that. You know exactly what you're doing." He set the glass down. Didn't take a sip. "So do you." My breath caught. I felt it in my stomach. Something tense, twisting. We stood there in silence, the only sound being the rain tapping against the window. "Why did you come here?" I asked. "Because I wanted to see if you'd let me in." I laughed, too quietly. "Well, Now you know. He didn't move. That's not all I want to know. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. Because all of it, the flirting, the glances, the tension, it had built to this. This quiet moment in the kitchen where everything hovered on the edge of something it shouldn't. He stepped closer, just a few inches. I could feel the heat from his body, the way my chest rose just a little faster. "Tell me to leave," he said, "and I will." But I didn't. I couldn't. He reached out, not with urgency, but like it was the most natural thing in the world, and tucked a strand of hair behind my ear. Again. Slower this time. His hand didn't drop right away. His fingers grazed my neck, my jaw. I closed my eyes. One more second, one more inch, and it would have happened. But then a loud vibration cut through the moment. My phone. I jumped like I'd been caught. It was my husband, calling. I stared at the screen. Andre took a step back. I answered, forcing my voice to sound light, unaffected. "Hey." "I'm 10 minutes away," he said. "Thought I'd beat the traffic." "Okay," I said too quickly. "Drive safe." When I hung up, I couldn't even look at Andre. He nodded slowly. "That's your out." I didn't say anything. He grabbed his coat and walked to the door. Right before stepping outside, he turned and said, "That moment's still waiting. It's not going anywhere." Then he was gone. And I was standing in a kitchen full of silence, heart pounding louder than the rain. Absolutely. I'm going to make this final part everything you love. Intense, suspenseful, emotionally charged, and ending on a serious cliffhanger. Here's part 4. From her point of view, I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed next to my husband, his arm draped over me, his breathing soft and steady, while my mind replayed every second of what happened in the kitchen. The way Andre looked at me. The way I didn't tell him to leave. The way it felt like something huge was hovering just one breath away. I wanted to believe I could shake it off, that I just had a moment of weakness, curiosity, that maybe it had all been in my head. But it wasn't. Because 3 days later, Andre came back. I hadn't told him to. I hadn't texted or called or dropped the slightest hint. And yet, that Sunday afternoon, while my husband was out playing a quick round of golf with some friends, I heard the knock again. I opened the door before I could stop myself. He didn't say anything this time, just walked past me like we both understood there was no need for pleasantries anymore. I should have told him no, should have pushed him back outside, locked the door, screamed if I had to. But I didn't. We stood in the living room in this electric silence, the kind that burns under the skin. "You're playing a dangerous game," I said, barely above a whisper. Andre gave a slow smile. "You started it. That wasn't true, was it?" He stepped forward again, not rushed but steady. I didn't move, not when he touched my arm, not when he leaned in, not even when he whispered, "You want this just as much as I do." I hated how true it felt. He reached for me, just barely, his hands at my waist, not demanding, just there. My breath hitched, and everything inside me screamed to do something, stop it, say anything. But my body betrayed me. We were inches apart. His mouth close enough that I could feel the heat of his breath on mine. And then there was a sound, a voice, from the hallway. "Babe?" My husband. My blood froze. Andre's eyes widened, and in an instant he backed away, disappearing into the hallway like a shadow. I ran to the front door, just in time to see my husband stepping inside with a smile and a bag of pastries in his hand. "You left the door open," he said. My mouth opened, but nothing came out. My heart thundered in my chest. He kissed my cheek, oblivious. "Thought I'd surprise you." He walked into the kitchen. I didn't follow. Instead, I turned to the hallway. Empty now. and stared for a long second, praying Andre was gone. But I had no way to be sure. Later that evening, as we sat on the couch and watched TV like nothing had happened, my phone lit up on the coffee table. One new message. It was from an unknown number. No words, just a photo. A photo of me, in the doorway, with Andre, that close, his hand at my waist. My heart stopped. Then another message followed. Told you that moment was still waiting. I looked up at my husband, laughing at something on the screen, completely unaware. And that's when I realized I hadn't escaped anything. The real danger had just begun. Now that you enjoyed this story, make sure you share this video to your friends and story lovers and click on the subscribe button to subscribe to our channel for more true and real stories like this.